So let's talk about swaddling. Swaddling can work well for many babies. It helps to calm them, soothe them. It helps with the transition from inside to outside, where they're nice and snug and warm inside, and then we can make them nice and snug and warm on the outside. However, not all babies like swaddling. Okay, there's the odd baby that would prefer not to be swaddled or to have their appendages free. So in the demonstrations that I have for you, I have a couple of variations of the traditional swaddle that might work well for you and your baby. The first way that we're going to swaddle a baby, we have our baby here, is the traditional way. And this is a muslin swaddling blanket. But we're going to make sure that the edge of it lines up with baby's shoulders, because we want to make sure that baby's head can turn back and forth, that there's no, if they have to spit up in the middle of the night, they can still turn their head. So we start by, it's put it into a square and then pulled the corner down. And we're going to take from close to baby, and this is going to come down over baby's shoulder. We just throw all this stuff over here. So that's the first part, the down. And we're going to pull up from the bottom. We have a lot of material here because this is quite a big blanket. We're going to bring it just up near baby's chest, but again, not impeding any space around here. Down, up. And then we're going to take, again, from here, slide over a bit, and then we stop. It feels very instinctual to take all of this material and pull it over, but that's not what we're going to do. So down, stop. And all of this material here is now going to be the final up. So it's going to go up, it's going to wrap around, and it's going to tuck in wherever we can fit it. Okay? Now it's a little loose down here, but we want that, and I'll explain why in a bit. And it's not too tight around baby's chest. And there you go. That's the traditional way. So a slight variation of the traditional way I'm going to show you now. Some babies actually don't like to have their arms straight down their body. Some babies prefer to have their hands up by their chest or their face. This is a more traditional or a more comfortable way for them to be. You've probably noticed in your ultrasound videos, babies' hands are always up here. They're not usually down straight at their side. So same setup as before, but instead of laying baby down with their neck here, I'm actually going to take this and we're going to fold it down and then pull it up. Hopefully I have enough. We will put baby again in right where that edge is. But now with this extra little fold we have here, we'll wrap this around baby's arm, and then this is going to come over and tuck. That arm is trapped in there. And then again, over like this, and then tuck. And then we don't have to worry about any up movements. Then we can just tie it if you want. Now for newborns, this one can feel a little bit more comfortable for them because their hands are sort of up by their chest now. And finally, if all that feels just a little bit complicated, we have Velcro. We have a very simple Velcro bag where, again, baby's going to go in right at the edge. It's just a bag. We stick them in. Hold that hand down and under. Hold that hand there and under. And I keep my hand in here for a minute just to make sure that it isn't too tight, so that baby still has some breathing room and some ability to move and kick their legs. You can also, this one works well, if you have a baby that likes to self-soothe. You can have a hand out, which is a good option too. Or as you're transitioning out of the swaddle, you can have both hands out. Or some babies just prefer to have both hands out. Okay. That's an option too. Not as easy to do the hands up, but keeping baby's hands there. Come across and come across. And there, baby's hands are on their chest, not necessarily going to poke out, but they have a greater ability to poke out if they're quite strong. There you go. One of the key things with swaddling is we need to make sure that it isn't too tight. So many years ago, care providers did a big look at swaddling because they were starting to see some trends. They were noticing higher incidences of respiratory issues, higher incidences of hip dysplasia, and issues with breastfeeding and weight loss. So they did a big look and they came to a conclusion that one of the culprits was likely swaddling that was too tight. And what that means is, so when your babies, for example, with respiration, when your babies are breathing, they breathe very exaggeratedly. Their chest rises quite significantly when they breathe. When the swaddling is really, really tight, it means they can't give those nice big breaths. So we want to make sure, and you've seen in the demonstration that I had when I did the fold over, I always had a hand in there, so that allowed for some give for the chest to do its big raising that they need to do when they're breathing. Now, in the case of hip dysplasia, when it's too tight around the hips, that can cause some issues, and babies like to have their legs be able to move and scrunch up if they need to. And finally, with feeding, what was happening is babies were swaddled so tight, it was actually stifling the startle reflex. So what the startle reflex is, and you may notice this with your baby, is they will like, jerk and wake themselves up. But it's a reflex, which means it's meant to be there. So we need to make sure that it's there, because what it's doing is it's waking babies up so they're not going into deep, deep sleeps for longer periods of time, which again can disrupt breastfeeding if they're not feeding at that sort of relative every 2 to 3 hours that they're supposed to. And it's also actually a risk for SIDS if babies go into deeper sleeps and are not able to sort of come out of it. So we need to make sure that babies can move their legs, that they can breathe the way they need to. So the swaddling can't be super, super tight. And you've seen in the video demonstrations that I showed you that it's not super, super tight, all right? Now, the funny thing is when this, just as an aside, when this all happened, when these recommendations came up, it was suddenly in hospitals, no more swaddling. And what used to happen before is the nurses, particularly in postpartum, would or labor and delivery as well, would bundle your baby up and it would look like baby origami, and they'd hand you this little baby burrito that basically had like a hood and everything. Then what they were doing was, and this was probably about 15 years ago, they would lightly swaddle baby, or they would lightly wrap baby in a blanket and then hand you baby. And they're like, great, okay. But then once baby got to postpartum, I think they realized that an entire unit of babies that were not swaddled is a lot, because these babies are crying. These babies are struggling with this transition from inside to outside. So they realized that maybe getting rid of swaddling altogether probably wasn't a great idea. So let's back up a bit. So now swaddling is back into the mix, but we need to make sure that it's done safely and that it isn't too tight. Now, you also find that your baby will likely not do well in swaddling sort of beyond that sort of 2-month period, 8 weeks, 12 weeks, maybe even. And what's going to happen is your baby doesn't want to be swaddled anymore. They want to be busting out. They want to be free. So we can do some of the transitional swaddles with arms out, and then basically then move baby into sort of a sleep sack situation for sleeping overnight if you'd like. But once baby can bust out of their swaddle, it's now a hazard and we need to take it out of the mix. But do it safely and gradually, and then we just take it out of the mix. So there you go. I hope this was helpful for you. And if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to shoot questions to support@torontodoulagroup.com.